And we are alive. What's up? Welcome back to Western Star Movie Reviews, the podcast on the WICR. I own a WICR. If you are new, I am Hunter West. I host this every 2 to 3 o'clock, depending on what time I want to start. Talking about the latest movies, getting you on track of all the movie stuff, news, TV shows, some reviews, some past stuff that I want to talk about maybe. And this week we got a lot. We got 6 movies, I think 5 movies to talk about. Plus, we're going to talk about some old, forgotten, in my opinion, some of the best forgotten shows that have come out on the Nickelodeon side of things, because I'm going to tell you why. And also, what is yet to be upcoming next week, this week, next week, and what's I'm going to see this weekend, all that kind of crud. So, movies that I talked about: Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantamania. We got to talk about Knock at the Cabin, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie. Of course, we got to talk about You People and Pale Blue Eye and Your Place in Mine, 3 new Netflix movies. Do they all stink? We don't know. And talk about some of the more forgotten Nickelodeon shows of the past, some things that people grew up with that maybe not a lot of you guys know about, but I do, and I think they're really, really clever. Obviously, rewatchability is key, but unfortunately, haven't been able to watch full episodes. You can't watch. I'm not haven't been able to revisit them because Paramount Plus is a subscription that I don't have still, and I really like it. I think I'm ready. I'm going to ask for it for my birthday, June 18th. Hopefully that happens. But, anyways, let's get into it. So, the big topic today, and let's go over the big topic, and that is obviously there's a new MCU movie coming out, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the first of Phase 5 Marvel. Now, Phase 4, I think a lot of people can argue or agree that Phase 4 for Marvel was a little bit of a disappointment. Number one, it introduced a lot of new shows. Some of them were not good. And it also had some movies that were on the lesser par of quality. Black Widow was not really that good. I mean, obviously, over time, it's gone down in my MCU ranking. Um, Listen, Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings is incredible. It's one of the best MCU solo movies. You have Eternals, which is really, honestly, to me, is one of the worst MCU movies. I just don't like it. Spider-Man: No Way Home, which I don't think anybody can argue is the best movie of Phase 4. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness can go either way for people. I, for one, think it's fine. Thor: Love and Thunder was an absolute bust. Didn't work for me. And Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, you guys know about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I absolutely think that movie is also deserving. And some of the Phase 4 TV shows didn't work. She-Hulk, I did not like. Miss Marvel, I know a lot of people are going to probably get triggered. I did not like Miss Marvel. I thought they lost the style within the first 2 episodes, and episode 5 is one of the worst things Marvel has put out of ever. Moon Knight was a disappointment. Hawkeye was okay. WandaVision and Loki are probably the only 2 things that I really enjoyed in terms of TV shows. And we're supposed to be getting a new one with Secret Invasion. We don't know when that's coming out. Um, so it's been a rocky start for Phase 4, but it's Phase 5, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is the first movie that's hitting Phase 5. Now, I will admit, I'm not the biggest fan of the Ant-Man movies. I think the first one's good. I think the first one is a really fun film. Offers a lot of, you know, fun and stuff. It is the second lowest grossing or lowest opening weekend for a Marvel film. I think it's like $56 million, and that was a year where Age of Ultron made like 190 million. This movie, it made considerably less. Even Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it made more, but not that much. It made like $76 million. And so, like, I think it's safe to say the popularity of the Ant-Man franchise is a little bit lost. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people were excited to see this movie. Why? Because Kane the Conqueror is here, played by Jonathan Majors, who was in, I believe it was Devotion, another one of my favorites from last year, and of course another movie that's coming out in 2 weeks called Creed 3. Very excited for Creed 3. And so this movie, it's really anticipated. And pretty much, if most of you who don't know the story of this movie is that this is the start of Phase 5, and Cassie and Hank's family have been, well, he has been saving the world. He and doing all this other things like publishing a book about what he did with the Avengers. He finds out that his daughter and Hank and Hope have been working on this thing where they can talk to the quantum realm. Fortunately, something goes wrong, and they all get sucked into the quantum realm again. And this time, they meet Kane the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors, and he wants to get out of there so he can wreak havoc on the world. And obviously, it's like, no, we're not going to let you do that. And so this movie, it's big. Like, this is the biggest budget of the Ant-Man movies. I think the first two combined were like 250. This is a $200 million production film. And so the movie, to me, I was nervous because, like, I'm not a big Ant-Man fan. I did not like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I felt like the movie just really didn't connect with me. After Avengers Infinity War, which came out 3 months before that film, it just feels, a little bit like way wasted talent. And so, going in to Ant-Man and Wasp Quantamania, a lot of people are expecting one thing. Is Jonathan Majors great? And his short answer is yes. Jonathan Majors as Kang is awesome. The best part of the whole movie. When you see this guy and he says some things, it's like, yeah, he's a villain. He's a really big villain. And so he was great. Paul Rudd is great. All the actors are great in the movie. Uh, Catherine Newton, who, by the way, was also recasted. Apparently, it was supposed to. Originally, in Avengers Endgame, there was a different person playing Cassie, but they decided to apparently recast her. I have no idea why. They just couldn't have let the original one be part of the MCU. I mean, this girl was in like Pokemon, Detective Pikachu, another big movie that came out that did fairly well in the box office, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. And so she was good. And I thought she was going to be like, because apparently she is the one that creates the machine and it sets them all up. And so they're good. Some of the action's really, really well. Some of the CGI is really interesting. And I did like the final battle. The two post-credit scenes were something, and that's me trying to be positive. Because as much as I really, really wanted to enjoy this movie, I just couldn't. Unfortunately, this is one of the weakest MCU movies, in my opinion. And it all comes down to story. The story of this movie is pretty much, oh, something goes wrong, and now we're all here, and we're trying to make things better because the whole reason they're in the quantum realm is because Cassie builds this thing that, and you see it from the trailer. I'm not spoiling anything from you. I'm not going to spoil anything. If I might do a spoiler. No, I'm not going to do that. But there's all these different things where, like in the trailer, Cassie builds this machine where it's like, I want to, I want to send a signal down so we can study it more. And it's like, but that's dangerous, right? And it's like everyone gets sucked in. And then there's these all new characters that come into place that have no impact on the film whatsoever. And apparently they're just like, it's like, oh, Dad, we have to help out these people because they're dying, and their world is being taken by Kang the Conqueror. It's like, no, we don't owe these people anything, and so it creates another plot for the movie. Um, the story is really choppy. Like the first act of the film, like I would say there are three acts of this movie. The first act is personally to me one of the weakest MCU first acts. It might be one of the worst MCU first acts. It's all over the place. The and a $200 million budget film should not be, like really weird and off with the special effects or CGI. Some of the CGI was not good. The green screen was very noticeable, and y- you know, it just comes down to like the movie, did it deliver on the note? Like they said, like this is an Avengers level film. No. Is it an Ant-Man movie? No, because it's really just like we're all scattered around the place and we meet Kane and it's like, "Oh, we got to you got to get something for me, so I can give you back your daughter, you know?" And so it's like, "No, that doesn't work." And, you know, it's a struggle. And there's so many things in the movie that are spoilerish that I don't wanna talk about that really affect the movie. Like, I don't think this is a spoiler at all, but Bill Murray shows up in the movie and, just to be like, I'm a Ghostbuster and I'm in an MCU movie now," and he does nothing. Like, he does nothing in the movie. He's there for one scene and that's it. There's no like, "Oh, maybe he's gonna be a villain. Maybe he's gonna play an interesting character." He's just a guy. He's just a dude, you know? And so there's that. And the one thing that's like, it's not a spoiler, but Modoc is in the movie because he was in the trailer, you know? And so Modoc is awful. Like Modoc is really bad in this movie. Like the first time you see Modoc, it is the one of the worst CGIs I have seen on a Marvel character ever. Like worse than the She-Hulk CGI that was in like that first trailer that didn't look all good. And so like this movie is really divisive for me because there are parts of it like Modoc should not be in the movie. Like if you're going to do Modoc, don't put him in a movie where you have one of the toughest and like baddest villains in the world, and then you just have this floating head. It's like bad CGI, and they don't do it like the comic books do it. They do it where, again, this isn't a spoiler because it's in the Wikipedia page and it's in like the casting area, but Corey Stoll from the first Ant-Man movie, who played Yellow Jacket, is actually Modoc. And so like they couldn't just been like, oh well, should be a different person there, right? But it's not. And the way they make it, the way they end all, they take his character is so like ridiculous. It's like I don't understand this. I didn't like him before and I don't like him now. Like I said, the CGI in this movie is messy and it picks up where Kang, finally comes in. But even then, it's like, why did we waste all this time for that? you know and then there's this whole side plot of this like revolution thing, which I'm not going to spoil. I encourage you to see the movie this weekend if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, good for you. But there's a lot. And the two post credit scenes, one of them was kind of teasing something for something else, and the other one, it felt stupid. Like it really felt stupid. It's like, I guess this is what you mean by Kane Dynasty, but like it was executed where it's like one guy said it best, where, and I'm gonna say it as well because I think it feels like an SNL skit where it's like one guy's playing every character and it's like, what is happening, you know? But whatever. The Marvel formula is getting like tiresome because like I'm always excited for these Marvel movies. It's just like when is it going to come clear that the Marvel formula is not going to work every single time with these types of movies? Like the movie that this they made this movie, and it's just sometimes it was just boring. Like this is one of the most like weird MCU movies that I have seen in a while. So I can't go fresh with this movie. I'm gonna go give it a 5 out of 10, and it's an average film at best. This is an average. It's fine, but this isn't like a huge movie that everybody needs to go see because it's an MCU movie and everybody needs to go see MCU movies so they can make money and Marvel or Kevin Feige can be happy. It's not like I don't know. I give it a C, and that's it. No, Mm, I'm not encouraging any of you. This isn't like you got to go out and see this. I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying like whatever you want. So yeah, overall, didn't really. This was a little bit of a disappointment. Next topic is Not at the Cabin. Not at the Cabin is a new M Night Shyamalan movie, and whenever an M Night Shyamalan movie comes around, you're always like interested, but you're gonna get a weird twist at the end that might change the whole entire movie for you. And so this movie is based off of a novel where a couple and their daughter rent out a cabin, and Dave Batista and his four or three friends are there to break in and take them hostage. And then they realize, like, oh, you guys are, you guys have to sacrifice somebody or the world's going to die. Like, the world's going to die and you need to sacrifice some people, but we're not going to tell you why until later on in the movie because that's what creates tension. And so you're just like these four random dudes are just in this house threatening these people to kill one of them so they can prevent the apocalypse. And so obviously as things start to unravel, they start to realize, oh, maybe this is real, maybe this isn't, you know, are they gonna fight to see which one dies? Are they gonna shoot the child and live happily ever after? What's gonna happen? You know? And so this movie, when I saw the trailers, I was interested. But again, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and I'm prepared to be like, oh god, this is an M. Night Shyamalan movie and it's gonna suck balls, because he hasn't made a movie like as good as Split. And I feel like Split was one of his best movies. Um and I'm happy to say that Not at the Cabin is a really entertainingly good film. It's not Shakespeare, it's not perfect, but it's a really good movie. Starting out with the performances, Dave Batista is excellent. Um, I think he is absolutely the best part of this movie. He is great. Probably his best performance of his career. He knocks it out of the park with this character, Leonard. The other three are fine. Rupert Fried from the Harry Potter movies is in here playing a another one of his henchmen, and I find it weird sometimes his accent would come out, but he's like he's like a redneck sort of thing. You got the two men who have the kid are Ben Aldridge and Jonathan Groff. Jonathan Groff, if I didn't realize it, actually is playing plays Kristoff in the Frozen movies. I never knew that. So, you know, that's something, it's not something new to me. The more you freaking know. Um so he was good. I like Ben Aldridge is really good, and the young girl who they play was actually also good as well. All the acting in this movie is really good. It's shot beautifully. It's shot beautifully. It's a nice landscape, and the story is very, very unique. And things start to happen as you move on throughout the entirety of the film, and so like it does feel like you know it does sometimes feel like, this movie does tend to be a little bit of a drag, and there's people watching me. There's people there's people watching me, and I don't know why they're just like, there's three people. One guy's taking a picture. I think he's still taking a picture of me. I don't know what the fuck. Oh shoot. I don't know what I don't know what is going on, but um hi. Say hi. Um but I think the reason why I tell them but the reason why I think that this movie works so much is because this is a different Shyamalan movie than it's just like, let's take a concept and just like, you know, let's just take an idea and just ruin it, because last year he made a film called 2 years ago, he made a film called Old, and, that was a apparently people hated that movie, and some people were like, "Ask Jordan Peele to do it." So, like, something like this is good. I think the problem with the movie is that there are scenes that feel repetitive, that really add no purpose to the movie, and by the end of it, you realize that there actually isn't that well, I'm not gonna say what it is, but by the end of the film, you realize that he did something different, and I don't think it worked for me because normally I expected like, oh, there's what's the big thing that happens? Is there like a reveal of some sort? Is this all like a dream? Is this a simulation? Is this not real? Or was this a prank? Like an established prank by a corporation? Like what happens? And whatever they said, which I'm not going to spoil, obviously, felt a little bit lacking. Also, there's this weird scene where a lot of screaming happens that just was like, what the hell is going on? It's it's weird. Um, so I do have issues with the movie. It's not perfect Shyamalan, but I'll tell you, I enjoyed this movie. I think it's really good. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Um, I'll go B minus, and I think you can watch this movie. I think it's streaming right now on like a channel. I don't know what channel is streaming on, but I think it's on Voodoo Fries. It's on Voodoo for Fandango. I don't know if nobody has that here, but yeah, if you want, you can check it out. I think I recommend it. It's a fun time. I think it's still playing at certain theaters, so definitely watch it. Next up, let's go to You People, a Netflix movie. This is from Jonah Hill. It stars Jonah Hill, Eddie Murphy, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I think, uh, David Duchovny. Um, I forget who are the other two people in the film. I don't know. There's a daughter and a mother. Pretty much it was about how there's this guy who has this podcast, and he runs into this girl who um who who finds this woman who is apparently driving, and they meet and they hang out with each other. One's white, one's black, and they start to fall in love, and then they bring their families in. They meet each other's families, and obviously one parent starts to make things awkward for everyone. And so it's kind of like, what's going to happen? Like, is this relationship going to be good? Is it going to suck? And this movie really relies on modern day comedy. Like, there are scenes in the movie that just like that are told that really you have to be a modern day millennial, I think, to understand the jokes. So it's like there's like a joke on here about Drake that even I don't understand because I don't listen to rap. Sometimes there's certain rap songs that I think are good. But most of it's not. I know, divisive. Divisive opinion on rap, but um the problem with this movie is that it's so draggy. Like it drags on for almost 2 hours long, and like it really just comes down to like the fact that if you don't understand modern culture, you're not going to like this movie. It takes very long to get into like, oh my god, I just realized my mic just went to the three sign of the VU. I don't know what that means. I think this means it's very loud. And it just went over the three. Oh my god. Um, but it's so draggy where it's like the first like 30 minutes is just like, okay, let's meet the parents. The second act of this movie is just like, oh, let's hang out with the other parents and see what they do, So Jonah Hill is hanging out with Eddie Murphy, the girlfriend's hanging out with Julia Dreyfus, you know, and her black friends, and it creates like awkward comedy. And so, you know, it feels like awkward comedy. And that's another thing. There's a lot of these social commentaries, and I just want to make something real quick. I'm not against social commentary. I don't care. But as long as when you put it in a film, you have to tell the good story. Like as long as you put a good message in the movie, you have to put an actual good movie in there. So it's like, oh, I understand your message, and I do like the film that you put the message in. And so the message here is like, oh, modern day society, blacks and whites, they can't hang out. It's like, all this commentary stuff about people and just like if it's a social commentary, that's one thing. But if you're telling a movie and a comedy at that point as well, then you gotta stick to one. And this movie doesn't know how to stick. They don't know how to stick with one side of the story, and it creates a lot of problems, you know, for the script, the screenwriter, and the watcher themselves, because it's like what's the motive for this movie? What's the big catch? And I just feel like, put that down. Let me just put it up. Okay. And I just feel like, it's like a lot of wasted potential because, it does look like a funny movie, but some of the comedy just didn't work for me. Some of the writing doesn't work for me. Overall, it's a Netflix movie, so you're not expecting much from it. Overall, I'm gonna give this one a 4 out of 10. I'm gonna go with D plus. Wouldn't recommend this. I would actually probably skip this one. What do I Did I give it a D plus? I gotta look at my ratings again because sometimes I change my mind. Yeah, D plus. Okay. Next up, let's go to the Pale Blue Eye. The Pale Blue Eye is a Netflix uh mystery movie in which Christian Bale plays this guy who is, in the midst of a mystery of somebody is out there murdering cadets and people, and he's brought in to figure out what to do. What does he need to do? Who is going to do help him with that? And there's this other guy who plays Edgar Allan Poe. And this movie actually is interesting because I had to watch this in two increments because my sleepy ass father kept sleeping the first half of the film. And I'm just joking about that. But it was 2 hours and 10 minutes long. He felt sleepy because he got home from work, so I was like, "Okay, maybe we gotta do it." I think this is an indication if a movie is under 2 hours or under an hour and 50 minutes, maybe wait to watch it in the morning or in the afternoon, and not watch it late at night when he just got back from work. So, this is a movie that was directed by Scott Cooper, and his last film I didn't like at all, which was Antlers, and so I was interested to see what this guy would do. And it turns out it's actually a really good, like a clever film. I enjoy it. Um, does it drag on a lot of times? Yeah, it drags. It's not a perfectly good movie. It's not a flawlessly good film. It's a well acted movie. The acting of this movie is great. Christian Bale, as always, delivering a great performance. The guy who got to play Edgar Allan Poe is awesome. You see some cameos from other characters in the movie. Um, that I won't mention. Toby Jones is in the movie. Lucy Boynton from Bohemian Rhapsody is in the film. There's a guy who is from the Fear Street trilogy, which if you haven't watched the Fear Street trilogy, I recommend you watch it. It's a great horror anthology trilogy films, something, something, and I really enjoy it. I think it's a really good film. Those are great movies. And so, like, this movie, it has that great atmosphere of, nice, creepy, noir, sort of Oscar feel film. And so, like, that's great. The cinematography is awesome for a Netflix movie. It was shot really well. The acting of this movie, obviously, of course, is great. It's just that the problem for me is that the story feels weird. And the movie drags on quite a while. And when you finally get to like the reveal of like who is the person that's doing all these murders, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then they slap on actually like all this information. So it's like, well, actually, I remember this happened to you, and then they flash back to what happened. And then it's like we haven't seen this before in the beginning of the film. So it's like, oh, that's why he did it. And it's just like, if we're gonna do that, don't make it obvious. And so I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I think this is a well worthy mystery movie. Does it get lost in its story sometimes? Yes. But I did enjoy the characters. But also there's this weird subplot with demonicness and ghosts that I feel like goes really nowhere. So there's that. Uh this is one of the better Netflix movies I've seen. I'm gonna go with a 6 out of 10 as well. I'm gonna go B minus as well. So this is about the same thing I feel about with Knock at the Cabin. It's a well made film, well acted, well shot film. It's just that the story sometimes feels a little bit draggy. And there were some characters in here that didn't need to be in there that were just added in for effect. But overall, I enjoyed myself watching The Pale Blue Eye. Check it out on Netflix. Now we move on to the final movie, and that is the Your Place and Mine. This is a Netflix comedy, a romance rom com starring Reese Witherspoon and um, what is it? Ashton Kutcher. And it pretty much goes as the story follows is that there's a single mother now who takes after her son. She's a very caring mother, and she has this friend named Peter, and she's always working hard to get her son great. He has all these allergies and stuff, and I itch on my back. But she's a really good mother. She's a great person. And so Peter has this idea of like, what about if I swap places with you for a week, just to see how it is? Because you can stay in my apartment in New York, and I can go live with your son in LA. We can bond. Of course, they start to have feelings for each other later on. They used to date, but they don't. And, is this meant to be? Is romance meant to be? And here's what I'll say. I did have a lot of chuckles in the movie. I think this is a good acted movie, and there are some funny moments in the movie. Unfortunately, it feels like this film has been done so much times, and it's also really kind of a boring movie. It's not a terrible mess like the You People, but it's worse in the sense like there's all this cringe. There's sometimes cringe in the movie where it feels weird. There's these other characters that come in that don't really have anything to do with the entirety of the movie, and it just feels like tacked on nonsense. I do enjoy the actors, Reese Witherspoon and Ashton Kutcher. They have good chemistry in the movie. I also like the appearance from Jesse Williams, Steve Zahn in the movie from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid films. He's in the film. The girl who was in the Army of the Dead movie, who played the pilot, and she was also in Instant Family. I forget her name. She's really good. Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy um, is good in this movie. All the acting is really good, but the issue that comes to mind with this movie is the fact that it's a rom-com that feels boring. Like it does it like with the You People, it's almost 2 hours long, but this movie, it's the story that just feels boring. It's like, "Oh, can we just move on?" and stuff, you know? And also there's all this other extra stuff that's in the movie that I feel like if it would have been chopped out, it would have been a much better film. Like there's this unnecessary scene with hockey that just goes nowhere for the film, and there's all these weird moments that just don't work. Did I not would I not say that I did have a couple chuckles with this movie? I would say that. I did have a couple chuckles with the film, and it really just comes down to the fact that look, you're going into this movie to watch a rom-com, you're gonna have some laughs, and you're gonna be intrigued with how the romance goes, but overall, you're not gonna be blown away by anything. This isn't a perfect rom-com. This isn't a great rom-com. This is just kind of like a movie in which, you know, it happened on Netflix. And, why did I watch this movie? Because um it's in like the big, how would you say, like there was a trailer for this movie with the save the dates, and this was one of them. So this was like their bigger Netflix movie. There's other films coming out, but this was one of them, and so I really enjoyed it. So overall, I would say that this movie definitely for me is easily um obviously really good. It's kind of a mediocre from a best. So overall, I will give this movie a 4.5 out of 10. I'll go C minus on this movie, and I would recommend you probably should skip this one. It's not really something otherwise. If you watched it for Valentine's Day, good for you. If you didn't watch it for Valentine's Day, that's also good for you. But if you haven't watched it yet, that's kind of good for you. Anyways, it's good for you. So there's that. So now I want to get into the topic of, it's um, you know, I was born in a time where some of the popular Nickelodeon show or popular shows in general were not up to par with my personal take. Obviously, there was a lot that, came into play when I was older and I got into my teens and stuff, and then I started to be like, "Oh, I like these shows," but it was, like, back in the day. So this happens on, like, Disney Channel and stuff and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and nowadays it's just, like, really awful, bad TV shows just where, like, they're just hiring, like, the youngest kids to act in a show, and it's like those stand-up, like, those, like, um, live action, whatever those comedy shows where it's like the laugh tracks in the back. You have like the cheering and like the ooh, what's going on? And it's like the scared one. It's like that's the type of comedy shows we're getting now. But what about the ones that were old school that to me really were back? And I just felt like because recently, it just came to clear that they're doing a Zoe 101 reboot movie on Paramount Plus. It's unclear where all the cast will come back, but they have confirmed that that Zoe 101 is coming back in a movie called Zoe 102, which it should be Zoe 201. I would say that's a better title. And so, what are some of the TV shows that I enjoyed that I remember that kind of sparked my enjoyment for Nickelodeon? And I don't know why it's just me, but I would like to talk about it. Got it. So first up, well, I'm going to talk about the five more underrated shows. Obviously, everybody knows about Drake and Josh, and Victorious and Sam and Cat and iCarly, SpongeBob. All those nostalgia baits hit hard. Whether you're old, young, or you're starting to get into comedy, these were the shows that were the bomb to watch. Drake and Josh is still one of the greatest live action comedy shows ever told, and it stands by that. But what about some of those that are like just kind of like out of the ordinary? That are like, oh, there's a fandom, and it's actually a popular fandom. So I'll get started with this. I think one of the first ones that I will say that did spark a little bit of my love for TV shows and Nickelodeon is a show called House of Anubis. This came out in January of 2011, specifically on the first day of January 2011. Unfortunately, the show ended on June 17th, 2013. So it lasted from 2 or 3 seasons, along with an actual movie. I remember watching them every night when they would come on. It was a great show. It was pretty much about this American girl goes to uh it was pretty much about this American girl is going to this English boarding school, and she's staying at this Anubis house. um, and the caretaker of of the house, his name is Victor Rodenmar Jr. and the house mother Trudy. They have been taking care of the house, and there might be some things going on with these characters, but there's a new girl called Nina, and she comes in, to be like, "Hi, I'm the new girl. I'm from America," multiple times, but somebody else. It's like an NBA trade. Somebody else leaves, and so there's this mysterious. There's this popular girl named Joy who leaves out of nowhere, and so everybody's like, is she behind this? Is she good? Or what's going on? And then a mystery starts to unfold, and a lot of the new characters want to be aware, or a lot of the characters want to be aware of like what's happening. Is this a mystery? Is something happen? Are people gonna die? What is it? And the way the show was made, I feel is great. It's a very different show. It's it spawned a lot of fandom, and I think it's because I think the way that some of these shows, even some of the more adult ones that I watch now, the reason why the show works is because of the characters. You care about these characters. Every single one of them has a backstory, much like The Wilds has a backstory, with every single girl and boy having like their journey and a backstory on what brought them here. Every single character in the shows was had a purpose in life. Obviously, the new girl, she's from America. You got one guy who's always nervous about talking to a new girl. You have the mean-spirited one. You have the popular girl. You have the athlete. You have the two goofballs, and you have the smart aleck girl. And then you have the weird characters that are just like, are those suspicious people? Are they behind this all? And it's just like the show worked, and it ran for so little that it kind of surprises me that Nickelodeon hasn't, or other things on Paramount Plus. The show is streaming on Paramount Plus, and I'm curious to know if anybody remembers this show from the old days. And it went on for 2 seasons, introducing some new characters. Obviously, a little bit of the steam was lost, but I think the steam picked up in season 3. I think that the movie is unfortunately a little bit of a letdown, but it's still a satisfying end to a very popular show, in my opinion. So that's one of the shows I will talk about. Also, one of the shows that I think is underrated was a show that actually features my name in the show, and it's called Hunter Street. This was a show that came out, and unfortunately, they revealed that season 4 was actually filmed and it was aired in the UK. Unfortunately, it was not aired. It hasn't aired yet in the United States, and I don't think it will, because they actually ended the show. It started on March 11th, 2017, and ended on May 20th, 2021. Interesting enough, March 11th is also the day that I went to see Con Skull Island in movie theaters. Just a little bit of a wraparound. This thing lasted 4 seasons, and pretty much the story of this show is the fact that story of this show was kind of interesting as well. It's another mystery show. It's weird that I like these mystery ones. I don't know. Maybe it's the characters. Maybe it's the actors. I don't know. But the plot of this show was that there's 5 foster children in Amsterdam living in this old like novelty museum house apartment complex. I don't know. If you look up in Amsterdam, you might find the actual location of it. And inside, it looks really good. Obviously, it's a set, but if you want. And there it is an actual location. And so they live with these two foster parents who unfortunately get taken away. And there's this whole conspiracy theory on what is happening, who has taken them, what is going on. And there's all this weird things in his house and all these documentations. And so the kids all band together, but still have to live their lives normally. It really is just kind of like an interesting show where you have you have your you have the new guy coming in, and already you get like some confliction. There's like, oh, there's a big strong man who's always like the caretaker. There's the two children, one's smart, one's wacky, and then you have the one girl who's like kind of like the independent one that always likes to read, that that's sometimes really quirky and stuff. And so the thing that works for me not only is because it has my name in it, but it's also a very different one. The way they film it, the way it's shot, the way it's acted, it is I never understood that Amsterdam was filled with so many good locations, because the location settings on this show is really good. And it's also kind of like one of the shows that honestly I would say I think that would fit in my all-time favorite shows of all time, because it's very interested, you get the message, and I understood that. Unfortunately for me, the show lasted 2 seasons for me and my liking, because the last 2 seasons of season 3 and 4 were honestly, to me, a little bit of a letdown, especially the fact that 4 hasn't even aired yet in the United States, and it's really shocking to me, which is another reason why I just think that it should have done that and they should continue it. And, you know, it's weird, it's wacky, but it's not, let me just, yeah, it's overly not as complex. Um, it was released on, it was featured on Hulu, but that got scrapped and is still now on Paramount Plus, obviously, because Paramount Plus is Paramount, Nickelodeon, all that stuff. And so that's one of the best things. And the other one, the last one I would say that I will talk about with um hold on a second. Okay. Let me just go back. Okay. The last show that I'm going to talk about is a show that maybe some people have heard about, but it was a very interesting show about witches. And I'm talking about Every Which Way. Now, this was an interesting one because they actually, the fandom that this show based around is really strong. And it's always really sad when you see like the fandom striking back, like the Wilds fandom or the the Warrior Nun fandom, which, yeah, that's a show, but this show was interesting, and it was about it was about this girl that moves into Miami. By the way, obviously, again, another one where the filming and the cinematography is great. You have the beautiful scenery of Miami. They filmed on location. This is one of the rare shows where it films on location and it looks gorgeous. Like the settings of Miami are great. The cinematography is awesome. And I just wish that shows would do that. Shows like that, instead of just everything is a set and on green screen. Obviously, Zoe 101 to me is the best one because it's actually on a campus, and the campus is actually real. Like it's actually like the real PCA is real. And so it was about this girl who moves in with her father in Miami. She meets all these new friends and she realizes that maybe there's a little bit of something wrong with her, because there's these weird rays that start to flow out of her hand. And then there's this weird, these weird butterflies that spawn out of nowhere. And she realizes that she is actually a witch, and she now has the ability to do all these spells, but it takes a little bit of while. It's kind of like a new upcoming ride. It's like I would say what's something that happened, Venom, in a way. Something happened with Eddie Brock, and he's starting to learn all these new powers and stuff. And so there might be other characters out there that have this sort of power, that might not be there. Um, but the show was one of the more popular ones back in the day. It actually aired 2 seasons. This is one of the rarity that where I say 2 seasons aired in the same year. One aired in the fall, the beginning of January of 2014, and then it aired later on in the summer. And that's the same thing with the third and fourth season. This thing landed 4 seasons from 20 January of 2015 to July January 2014 to July of 2015. And again, January 1st. Uh, and so there's a lot of it's again, the characters are great. You don't have just like these stereotypical characters that are just like, you know, what are you gonna do? It's actually a well-written characters, much like, the other shows that I'm talking about, or even like to something like a The Wilds or something, or even something I'm recently watching, The Last of Us, you know, which by the way, I gotta talk about that, later on. And I'm actually really excited for the Mandalorian show. But um obviously this was one of the rare shows where it's like, oh, it's CGI, and obviously TV CGI is terrible unless you're working with Marvel or DC. Other than that, it's terrible CGI, but special effects, whatever. I do remember this really hilarious scene where they're literally on an actual stage. Like there's a stage that they're filming in an auditorium on a stage, and out of nowhere you just get this scene where one of the girls is trying to rescue this guy who's sinking in like this mud that is on the stage, but it's like a spell sort of thing and he can't move. And then she saves him, but the entire back screen is just all this green screen. It's like a CGI green screen of like something you would see in the behind the auditorium, and you can clearly tell. And then and then they cut back to where it's done, like he's rescued, and it would literally be like a normal shot of them on a stage, and it's just like, what are you doing? What is this? And so like it takes a little bit of pressure, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but I recommend watching it. And if anybody remembers this, good for you. You've piqued my nostalgia. And I think that's really it that I have on the podcast. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are going to be um let's see. No. So obviously, so a lot of things are happening this week. I don't know, my schedule looks interesting. I am going to see Cocaine Bear on Friday, see a review for that. Catch a movie review for The Strays, which is a movie that just hold on a minute. Yeah, there's a new movie called The Strays, which just dropped on Netflix. Where there you go. Just wait a minute, and there. So I'm excited for that. It's only 6 reviews, but a 27% rotten score. I am going to see Cocaine Bear. Obviously, don't know what the hell that was. But also I might check out some other streaming movies for you. Uh, we Have a Ghost is definitely going to be one. So we got 3 movies, obviously, this week. Very excited for. I will be also guest starring on another podcast with somebody. Um, and I gotta look at the podcast again. I'm sorry for that, but let me look them up again. I'm so sorry. Anthony and Issa's WIP season 6. I will be guest starring, talking about the MCU, obviously with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantamania. I will also be attending both games, basketball games at the WICR or for IUTV, just to get interviews and stuff and film players' reactions and stuff. So if you want, you can check me out then. Um, and yeah, So that is going to be it for the stream. For those of you, thank you so much for watching. To the one viewer who stayed at the end, or oh, I left. I left. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to tune in, obviously, every day, every Wednesday at 2. I like doing this a lot, you know, and I'm hopeful, maybe this can start maybe I can start a channel like this. I do have a channel with one video on there, just one video, and it was for a project editorial video for English 120. This was made May 19th, 2021. So you can imagine how that went. But this is going to be it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the Western Star movie reviewer signing off. I gotta get a trademark because the original my original look, or the original name for Western Star, is that Transformers Age of Extinction came out, and there was this truck that Optimus Prime transformed into called the Western Star. Peter built semi truck, and I can find it for you. And that's the image. That's the truck I'm talking about. That's the truck that I mean. And so that's where I kind of get the info on. That's what I wanted my nickname to be in high school. Didn't get that. Um, Again, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Western Star Movie Reviewer signing off, and I'll see you all later.